I've got to record.
Record the Zoom call.
Is your
Oh, the
Audacity
Zoom
recording?
call.
Is your Audacity recording?
My Audacity is recording, and
Your Audacity's recorded?
it's recording.
Okay,
I
I'm
have it
recording
recorded.
my
It looks
Audacity.
good.
Good. Now, are you ready to pack it?
I'm ready to pack it.
If you got to pack it and then you got to unpack it. You're gonna
pack
need
it,
smack
unpack
pack.
it. Smack it, a pack it.
You know why you gotta pack that there?
Pack that, smack it. Smack it,
Yeah,
pack it.
smack pack. Hello, and welcome to Into the Fold, a show where two best friends share their love of Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse chapter by chapter. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Juliana. And this week we are wrapping up our discussion and our reading of Shadow and Bone. And it's crazy that we're already here.
I know.
And yeah, it's been a wild ride and a journey and so much fun, Jeff.
And that's just one book. Do you know how many more books we have to get through?
I know.
I do.
I also know as well. And this is definitely the least exciting book out of the books that we're going to read, I would say.
Well,
I think.
Tell you what, as we finish the books, we can kind of come back and we can kind of gauge, was this book more or less exciting than the ones we talked about so far? Because we're going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, we're going to be here for a hot minute. And I definitely anticipate us doing a ranking of the books as we go along.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So right now, this book ranked number 1 because it's the only one that we've read so far.
It's number 1. It's number one. It's number 1. Yeah. No competition.
Shadow and Bone. Woo!
Yeah. Okay. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about our own thoughts on the book as a whole. We have plenty of thoughts from you guys because we reached out on our social medias like we promised, and you guys came through magnificently with your own thoughts about the book as well. So to all of our listeners who got in on the discussion, you've given us plenty to talk about today, and we are grateful for it.
Yes. Thank you for everyone who contributed. But first, let's get to our news from the front. Jeff, take it away.
News.
Yeah,
I did that quieter than I normally do because my wife is in the other room sleeping. Yes. Okay, so let's get to the news. Tell us what it is.
Okay, so we got an update from Leigh Bardugo, which is the first time we've really heard from her since that interview with the Penn Faulkner Foundation. And it's been a hot minute, probably at least a month, I would say.
Probably, but that's not uncommon. She's expressed several times that she's not a big social media person, which is one of the things I respect about her because she doesn't use it a lot, but when she does use it, she uses it thoughtfully, which I think is how it was supposed to be used.
Yeah, and we got a few updates from her. She mentioned that they're working on Shadow and Bone season 2, and she wants to tell us so many things, but she can't, and it's so we want her to tell us all the things too, but we understand that she probably signed a lot of NDAs. So we respect that. And we respect her respecting the contracts that she's been made part of. And we also got a note from her that you can get signed copies of Shadow and Bone from the Barnes & Noble website. So if you're looking for that as a gift for someone, honestly, a pretty awesome gift and something I definitely would consider honestly buying for myself. Not going to lie. And we also got to see her puppy dog and her garden, and those are doing well. And just one other thing too, I don't know how long this is going on for, but Goodreads, the app/website, is doing their awards for top books in certain categories. And King of Scars is out. Is it King of Scars?
Rule of Wolves.
I get them mixed up. I get them mixed in my head. Thank you, Jeff.
It's okay. Rule of Wolves is the direct sequel to King of Scars, so I can understand that.
Yes. So Rule of Wolves is out for a nomination in the young adult fiction area of the Goodreads Book Awards of the year. So if you'd like to go vote for that, you can head on over to Goodreads And I'm pretty sure it's on their homepage that you can vote for all these things. And all you have to do is sign in either with your Facebook or your email. And you can vote for Rule of Wolves in the young adult fantasy section. And you can also pick out some other books in some other sections that you really enjoy and upvote them as well, too. But
are you on Goodreads?
I have a Goodreads, but I don't actively use it too often, honestly.
I actively use it a lot. A friend of mine that I used to work with kept telling me, you have to get on Goodreads. Jeff, why aren't you on Goodreads? Jeff, you should get on Goodreads. And one day I set it up just so that she would stop saying that to me. Turns out Goodreads is actually really, really fun if you're a big bookworm like me and you. And they're not paying us to advertise. We have no advertising sponsors or anything like that on this show. I'm just saying that Goodreads is fun because I like it.
Yay, fun things.
If you are a book person, then definitely get on Goodreads. It's fun. You can set challenges for yourself. You can track how many books you're reading. You can get recommendations based on what you've already read. It's perfect for book people.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely need to be more active on that. In my free time, Jeff, I will go in.
When do you have free time?
I was going to say, what is free time?
Between the marathon you ran this morning and the marathon you'll probably run tonight?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. And I have to take some pictures and stuff like that, too. But that's beside the point. So, yes, go ahead and vote for Rule of Wolves over on the Goodreads website /app. And I know that Leigh and ourselves would highly appreciate that. And it would just be fun to be able to give her that accolade as well. So, yay, book reading things. Yeah.
That was so well executed.
I know. I'm a professional, Jeff. Thank you very much. I'm a professional podcaster. People pay me lots of money to be here. I mean, I'm being paid $5,000 an hour right now.
Okay, I don't remember getting that in my contract, so I don't even know who to get on the phone with.
You're not a professional, Jeff.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
If anyone is a professional on this show, then it is definitely the person who can look somebody in the eye while we're recording instead of doing whatever you're doing right now. The listeners can't see it.
I'm shaking my hips and going from side to side. This is the way that professional podcasters podcast, you know.
Yeah, definitely. They don't speak directly into the microphone at all times so that their poor editing friend can get even sound levels at all times, because one minute you're back here and then the next minute you're all the way up here. Yeah, very professional. You're the professional.
Very professional. I am the professional. Thank you very much. So now that we've established who is getting paid here and who is not, let's hear from the people who are paying us, Jeff, right? Yeah, okay.
Paying us attention, maybe.
Yeah, I know. At this point, we probably lost them. So goodbye. So we have a short. Yeah, I know.
Either way, let's do the voice of the people.
Yes. So as we mentioned earlier at the top of the episode, a lot of the things that we normally would put in the voice of the people section will be part of our actual discussion in the main section of this episode. But we do have some really nice comments that came over to us in regards to the episode, in regards to the show itself. And Jeff, would you like to start us off with one of them?
Yeah, we got a really, really wonderful, just beautiful message from, I'm going to apologize up front if there are a lot of names that are going to get mentioned today. And if I say any of them incorrectly, I am sorry. I am sincerely doing my best. But we got a comment on Instagram from Omidi, I believe is how this is pronounced. Apparently, Omidi uses they, them pronouns, and their name means hope, which is beautiful. Mm-hmm. They sent us, this was a DM on Instagram, wasn't it?
Yeah, this came to my personal Instagram.
So this came to our Instagram and it said, hey, thank goodness I found your podcast Into the Fold. And I finished listening to that. I absolutely loved it. Love you guys so much. So glad to find you. Several heart emojis. By the way, I'm living in Iran.
Yeah, so we have a listener from Iran, which is really exciting.
I don't believe this is the first friend I've ever made who lives in Iran.
Me too. It's nice to hear that our podcast is being listened to all over the globe. So thank you, Omidi, for the really nice message. And we're so glad that you found and liked the podcast.
And wherever people are listening, we always like to hear it because it's just nice. Honestly, it's nice to know that people are enjoying this as much as we are.
Yeah, I know. Where's Canadian Peyton? Where did she
Canadian,
go? Where did
hey,
they go?
hey, Canadian Peyton is very busy. Be nice to Peyton, okay?
I'm still waiting for that picture of their face on a piece of Canadian bacon. I mean, honestly, that's all I really want.
Well, that kind of thing takes time. Give him a minute.
I know that's art. I
While
have
we're
to
waiting
wait.
for that, there is this thing that Spotify does. I wish Apple would do a similar thing because I would love to see the stats on all the stuff that I listen to over the course of a year. But this is the time of year when Spotify will do this year-end wrap-up thing, and it'll
Uh-huh.
give you a list. It'll say, here's the artists that you listen to the most. Here are the genres that you listen to the most. Here's the songs that you listen to the most. And apparently, our show Into the Fold made at least two people's top 5 list on Spotify. So shout out to our friend Juliana Pedri over at What's That Podcast and Daniela, because they actually shared on their social medias that we made their top 5.
Yeah, which is really exciting. And thank you both for listening and listening so avidly. We really appreciate that. And I too agree with you, Jeff, because I use Apple Podcasts to listen to all my podcasts. And it's kind of annoying that everyone else can post all their stuff and their stats. And I'm like, I want to know. So, Apple, if you're listening, which you're probably not, make some kind of version of a wrap up. So that way, us Apple Podcast people can actually see what we listen to the most.
Oh, I'm sure they get that message all the time.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done it because it's kind of just a no-brainer, I think, but I don't know. Whatever. I am just very grateful for anyone who has listened to us this year. So thank you. Even if we didn't make your top 5, we're glad that you're listening. And again, shout out to Daniela and Juliana for making us one of their priority podcasts. Ooh.
Never been top 5 anything before. It's I gotta say, it feels good.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Now, we have some exciting news in our Grisha tally. The Materialki are finally starting to catch up.
Yeah, it was an interesting week for the Materialki because we got 2 new Materialki. We have Kaylin and we have Elmira. And Kaylin said that they are a Durist and also a chemist in real life. And then Elmira is also a chemist. So we had 2 people who are real life chemists join the Materialki ranks. And I was putting these people into the doc and I didn't remember the name of the first person I had put in the doc because it was a while back. And I was like, oh, Elmira is already in here. She's the chemist I added the other day. And I went back and looked. I was like, oh, wait, no. We have 2 people who are chemists who are joining the ranks of the Materialki, which is fabulous because right now, as of Caitlin and Elmira joining us in the Materialki category, we have 7 Materialki, 10 Corporalki, and 13 Etherealki. And if you would like to be added to this tally, you can go head over to our Spotify and take that poll, or you can send us a DM, or you can comment on any of our posts on any of our social medias, and we will add you to the tally. I did have a comment from our friend Omidi saying that they were waiting to take the quiz until later when we got into the later books, because I will admit that that quiz that they have you take for the Grisha order, you kind of have to have a good background knowledge of the books to properly take it, which is kind of
that's fair.
Yeah, it's kind of I've heard that from a lot of people, and I personally think so too, having taken the quiz. And it kind of stinks a little bit. I wish it was a little bit more general, kind of like the Harry Potter house sorting quiz, which, I mean, granted, those questions are not scientific in any sort of like sense of the word, but it makes it easier so you can sort yourself before you enter the universe that you're going to be taking part in. So, and we also have one more small thing, which is not really a small thing.
But it's no small thing. Somebody took the time to write a review. We love reviews because they let us know exactly how people feel about us.
Yes, we hope it's positive, but let us know. And Jeff, how did this person feel about us?
This person, I love their name because it's one of those names you can have fun with, because I feel like the person in real life, their name is Eleanor, but their username on Apple Podcast is Eleanor with like 3 O's.
I love it.
So Eleanor wrote a review titled, "It's What You Want It to Be," heart emoji. And they said, as a Grishaverse fan, I love getting more in-depth conversation about the whole universe. The hosts are amazing and they are so down to earth. I love going through the books with the 2 amazing hosts.
Oh, thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you, Eleanor. I love that she called us down to earth too. I mentioned earlier, I've never been anybody's top 5 anything before. And I don't know if I've ever been called down to earth before. Usually I get kind of the opposite.
I feel like you and I are just so real, Jeff, and just kind of goofy that it makes it easy to connect with us. I think that's just
real
my
goofy.
thought.
That's what we are.
I mean, if anything, I bring the goofy energy to everything that I do. I just remember when I was on Eric's podcast, thank you for spieling. He's like, this is the most chaotic episode I've ever had. I was like, that's because you're with me.
But yeah, he should have known what he was getting himself into when he brought you on that episode. I'm sure he did.
Oh, I think he expressed that he was very happy and was very glad that he had brought me on, because though my energy was slightly chaotic, it was kind of what he was looking for. So, sometimes you just got to have a little bit of chaos and a little bit of fun.
Speaking of a little bit of chaos and a little bit of fun, I think it's time for us to finally get into our main discussion, where we're talking about our overall thoughts on Shadow and Bone. Not going to give spoiler warnings this time because we've said several times what this episode is. So what do you say we just get right into it?
Yes. So let's just share, I guess, our thoughts about the book on the whole, Jeff. What did you think of this book? Any overarching thoughts that you would like to share about our experience reading this book together as friends?
Well, I've been thinking about how we've both said that I used to think it was unusual that I read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom and had no clue that Shadow and Bone was even a trilogy that came before it. So I go back and I read Shadow and Bone and I'm thinking, oh, this is helping a lot of things make sense. And because I'd already read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom before that, I was already like all in on this universe. So what I was thinking about this book as a whole was, if I hadn't read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom first, would this book have been enough to get me into this fictional universe? And honestly, the answer is yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you too, because as we all know, and as listeners know, and Jeff, you gave me this book for Christmas almost exactly a year ago now.
That's true. I did do that.
Yeah, and that's how I got involved in this. And I remember texting you being like, I'm in. Like, this is the first book series that has really gripped me since reading Harry Potter. And it takes a lot for me to be able to focus and read through a book thoroughly and actually fully comprehend and enjoy it, mostly just because of my dyslexia. But the fact that it gripped me so hard really goes to show that this, even though it's not, in my opinion, Leigh's strongest book by any sense of the word, but it's still a strong book and it's a really good book. And I think that overall, you and I both like the book.
Yeah. And what I really, when you talk about a series, I think what really makes or breaks a fantasy series, because you can come up with a unique interpretation of magic or science or whatever you want to call it, like the mysterious force out there in the universe that's trying to rule everything. You could come up with different versions of that, but with a universe like this, it's the characters more than anything. Do you remember them all? Do you care about where they are going to end up? They're the ones that really drive this story, because they're the ones that bring the universe to life for you. Everybody has their favorites, their least favorites, characters that they ship together, characters that they want to dress up as when they do cosplay, characters that they wait on tenterhooks to see who's going to get cast to play them in the live action adaptations. So the characters have to be something that really matters to you. And when I read Shadow and Bone, even if I hadn't read the other set first, I fell in love with most of these characters. The Apparat and the King, not so much. They can just go die slowly.
Yeah. But here's the thing, even with a character like the Apparat, he's very memorable and you want to know what's going to happen with him next. Even if you hate him, you want to know, who is this creepy ass dude who smells like a graveyard and what's his deal? And I definitely really agree with you with what you're saying, where all the characters, most of them, are just very memorable and you become pretty invested in what's going to happen with them next. And their personalities are very unique, I would say. I mean, my favorite character in this book definitely is the Darkling, just because of the way his character is built. Not because I think he's a good guy in any capacity, but the way that she builds his character just is so like, bleh, and I love it.
So how would you spell that?
Yacukaahk. Yeah.
Okay. National spelling bee word right there. That's what that is. It's an onomatopoeia, in fact.
I know. But yes, it is, Jeff. Thank you very much. That's the first time I've ever
spelled the word correctly. I was trying to see if I could get you to say it. It didn't work.
Onomatopoeia?
Yeah, that.
Unfortunately, okay. I can say onomatopoeia.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, I definitely really liked this book. It's, like I said, not my favorite book out of all the books that we're going to read, but it's still a good book.
It's a perfect introduction to this universe. Actually, this feels like a good time to say that we have a friend in common, the delightful and multi-talented Katie Carty-Hiley.
Yes.
And she recently started reading these books at our recommendation. And she said something to me that's kind of the opposite of what I usually hear. She read the Shadow and Bone trilogy and she loved them. And then she said she started Six of Crows. She's about 12 chapters in, and she was asking whether or not she should force herself to finish it because she's not feeling it. So she actually seems to enjoy the Shadow and Bone trilogy more. And in a weird way, I loved hearing that, just because I love knowing that it's possible for somebody out there to feel that way about it, because I've never heard anyone say that before.
No, I definitely feel like the Shadow and Bone versus Six of Crows kind of comparison, Six of Crows definitely wins it out with the majority of people, I would say. And I mean, for me personally, I definitely like Six of Crows more than I like the original 3 books, just because of the way that the characters are written and how she's evolved in her writing style by the time she gets to that point. But yeah, that's really interesting. You know what? It's funny though, Jeff, because in my head, I'm like, that makes sense for Katie. Like,
it does.
It just clicks for me, knowing who she is and knowing her. I'm like, yeah, that checks out. Yeah.
Some of the people who are listening, like, I know that our friend Danny from P But Super Smart is very familiar with Katie, because they are also, as we are, they are avid supporters of Alohomora. So
yes,
I know that they will be able to back us up on that. That sounds pretty in character for Katie. By the way, if she's listening to this, hi Katie, we love you.
Yes.
We love you so much. Yes. But no, overall thoughts on the book. She really knows how to write characters. She knows how to write female characters that aren't completely dependent on the romance arc in order to remain relevant to the story. I loved that part of the book a lot. Yeah. We talked about that, about how it's not that they can't be romantically involved or fall in love or any of those other things. It's just that it doesn't have to be a component for them to be relevant to the story.
Yeah, it's not the main storyline. I feel like the best counterpoint for this story is honestly Twilight, because the whole premise of Twilight is Bella falling in love with Edward, essentially, and people battling over her love and her being just a non-existent person of a character. Do Jeff and I love Twilight? Yes, we do. Is Bella a good, well-written character? No.
Not
at all.
No.
But I feel like that's kind of the contrapoint of Alina, because Alina is such a strong, confident woman. And yes, she does end up falling in love with Mal, but that is not her main motivation and her main storyline. It's kind of a weird side storyline that Juliana wishes didn't exist, but it's there and we have to acknowledge it. And I am glad that it's not. Yes, I'm glad it's not the main storyline for multiple reasons, but Alina is a kick-ass woman and we like her a lot. And that is also one of the things that draws you into this series. It's just how sassy she is about everything and how she has a comment for everything. And as a fellow sassy person who loves sarcasm, I highly appreciate Alina as a character.
So overall, you assigned a rating to this book.
Yes, I thought we could both rate the books. So for me,
what did you give it?
I gave this 6.5 out of 10 fabulous Darkling tents.
Fabulous That's my Darkling rating. Tents.
That's my rating system right now. You know, okay. Chandeliers.
FDT scale. I like it.
Yep, the FDT scale. And I gave it 6.5 out of 10. So it's a good book. It's definitely, and I'm definitely giving it this rating, having read the other books already and putting it on a scale with the other books right now in my head. But definitely a solid book. It's good. I like it. Not my favorite, but still a very, very good book.
See, I did kind of, when I saw that you had given it a rating and the FDT scale, the Fabulous Darkling Tent scale.
It's been validated multiple times over multiple scientific studies. Thank you very much, Jeff. It's a very valid rating system.
It really hasn't. When I was rating this book, I actually did the opposite of what you did. You just said that you compared it to all of the other books, but I was thinking we've been doing this whole read through trying to approach each discussion as if the person listening to it hasn't read past this point so far. So I thought I have to rate this book completely on its own without knowing anything that comes after it. So taking that into account, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Because we found some things about it that are not completely perfect. And again, because you and I know what comes after, we know exactly how her style has changed. Improved. She's matured as an author. But even if I hadn't read anything else of hers, I might be able to spot some of those things that weren't perfect about it, but I would still have loved this book enough that I would just be refreshing my Google page every day to see if there was any news about when her next book was going to come out, because I like I said, you care about the characters. You got to know where this is going. So I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I think if I'm going to take it from the same viewpoint that you're taking it from, Jeff, I think I would actually give it a 9 out of 10 because like I said, I was pretty drawn into this series after I read this one book. You only gave me this one book and this is where I started. And then I pretty much finished it. And by the time I finished the book, I had ordered all the other books and I had them sitting on my desk ready to go. So that way I could work my way through all of them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was a story that I was going to try to work in at some point. This is a perfect illustration of the kind of friendship that you and I have. I send you, though I have a very careful, like laid out plan of how I think I should do this. I'm thinking, okay, I'll send her the one book and wait to see if she likes it instead of sending her the whole series. And if she loves it, then I'll send her the others. But instead, I send you this book and you read it. And then what I get in response is a screenshot of a thing that you have done, which in this case is buying all the other books online. And when I think of Juliana, I think, so I did this.
Action first, talk later.
Exactly. That's how we ended up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, we should start a podcast. I'm like, well, what would we call it? What would it be about? And it's like, you know what? I got into these Grishaverse novels because you sent them to me and now I love them. Maybe we could do that. I said, yeah, sure. Let's do that. And then he's like, oh, maybe we could call it Into the Fold. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I get screenshots of the social media accounts that you've already set up. And you're like, so I did this.
A link to the Google Drive. You have all the things.
A template of a Google Doc that we can use for our episodes.
Yeah.
Oh my
I pretty much tell you what I've done after I've done it, and then just assume that you're gonna jump on board with me. And luckily, most of the time, You do, Jeff. So I'm thankful for that, for sure.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about some of our favorite moments from Shadow and Bone. What were just tell you what, give me a moment, like just
Ooh,
off the top of your head that stands out for you, a moment that you love very, very much.
I feel like I really like all the moments where we get the Darkling Alina interaction because they're just so like well curated by the Darkling and the things that he said and he says, and he's just so sassy and he just has such flair and style, and I just love it. I love it so much. So I feel like anytime we have any kind of interaction with him is a good scene for me personally. I'm trying to think of any specifics. Did you have any like super specifics in your head, Jeff?
There is what like I told you to pick one just off the top of your head, so I picked one off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
could go all if we were just talking about moments that we love, then I could probably go all day. But a
Yeah.
favorite moment that I always look forward to reading over and over again when I reread this book is the moment when Alina and Zoya are sparring in class and Zoya loses her temper and uses her power, and Bakken is like, "Hey, no,
Oh yeah.
spad Zoya, spad," and then sends her to the principal's office. Because
Bye.
that, to me, that was the moment I fell in love with Botkin as a character. Because, and
Ah.
we're going to talk about MVB characters in a minute, so I'll try not to gush too
Mm-hmm.
much. But that was, I love that moment because Alina stood up for herself. Zoya finally started to, her resolve finally started to crack. So we finally started to see she's not always going to hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
And Botkin stepped up and proved that he can be fair. He's not here to play favorites. And then the Darkling, he has moments where he's there for Alina, and then the moments where he reveals that he's using her as a tool. He doesn't actually care
Yeah.
about her feelings. But this was a moment where Alina is obviously probably very frustrated, probably very scared, but the Darkling was there to back her up.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good moment too. I agree that you get a lot of different character dynamics and interactions that establish a lot of things that are relevant going forward. So definitely a fun scene. Plus, you get Bakken, and we know you love Bakken, Jeff.
I do. I love Botkin. Australian Santa Botkin.
Yes.
I'm
He's
never
a
doing that impression again because now we have Australian Santa Botkin, like a real one out there.
yes. I would like to put a request out to our Australian Santa Botking because our next episode will be the winter fate. So if you would like to send us a Christmas greeting for
A,
Christmas, Santa, we would like that.
Chrissy, they call
A
it.
Chris
Chrissy.
a Chrissy greeting.
Yes, they call it Chrissy.
Chrissy.
That's fun. I love that they call it that.
Yeah. Very fun.
Now, some of our listeners had favorite moments as well that they wanted to share with us.
Yeah. So we had our friend Grisha Nerd Art on Instagram say, whenever Alina, the queen, is being her snarky self, not being pursued by any guys like Mal or the Darkling. And I agree. All of the moments where we get Alina being very snarky and sassy, I highly appreciate as well too.
And that's what we were saying before is that she doesn't have to be a object of somebody else's romance to be important. So that's why
Yeah.
she's not being persuaded, because romance, to me, my reading of Alina is that she is, and this is something I think you can relate to, Alina
Mm-hmm.
is a demisexual character to me. It's not that she can't
Yes.
be attracted to people. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that she can't fall in love with people. It's not that she doesn't ever have needs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But she has to have a very deep emotional connection to the other person in order for those feelings to exist. She's not just going to think, ooh,
Yeah.
that guy's hot, want to smash.
Yeah, I agree. She definitely, I feel that as someone else who is demisexual, I feel that energy from her. And she definitely needs that connection because we don't see her really being interested or invested in anyone that she doesn't have a strong emotional connection with. Even the Darkling, she has this strong emotional connection with that they've established, along with the fact that he kind of is able to manipulate a kind of faux version of that by being an amplifier too. So that definitely plays in his favor on the demisexual side of things. But I definitely agree with you, Jeff. I stand behind that. I like that keg cannon.
Now, this wasn't exactly a favorite moment from the book per se, but this was a favorite moment from the show so far, and this is going to be an ongoing thing with you and me for a long time.
Oh, yes, we're just getting started.
You posted a meme about this, the classic back and forth between the two of us about Mal and whether or not he is redeemable or not, and you brought it home with a meme you posted on our socials that says, "I don't like Mal, change my mind." You know what I loved most about you posting that meme?
Yeah.
I didn't feel like you actually wanted anybody to change your mind, because I haven't been trying to change your mind. I've just been trying to encourage you to keep a more open mind about the potential of Mal to be redeemed, because we can both agree he hasn't conducted himself well up to
No,
this point.
he has
Now,
not.
the amount of we were talking about this before we hit record, the amount of responses we got to that meme is, I think, almost more than all of the other posts we've ever written put together.
Yeah. Like I was telling Jeff a little bit earlier, I posted this as a side thought, and then all of a sudden I was walking around at work and my phone was just blowing up, and I was like, what in the hell is happening here? And it was all of you commenting on this post, trying to change my mind or just agreeing with me. So
I didn't know that was gonna happen, because I feel like on the rare occasions when we post stuff about Mal on our socials, a lot of people are in the same boat as you, and I get it.
yeah.
They really came out of the woodwork on this one.
Yeah, we had some really great responses. I think the first one we got was from the Hungry Hot Dragon, and they said, "Your page inspires me." And I said, "Yes, thank you very much."
I think it's did you spell this right? It's because it's I read it as the Hungry Hated Dragon, which
Oh,
didn't.
yes. Sorry, I missed
I
the
think it
second
might be
D.
the Hungry Hatted Dragon.
I
I
think you're
don't know.
correct.
It's okay. We'll go back and we'll spell check that.
I think you're correct, Jeff. I missed the D, the second D when I was reading it. So I think you are correct because I
Well,
just copied and pasted it.
however their username is written, we appreciate that the page inspires them. That's
Yes.
great to know.
Yes.
Now, Blue Jay Lull said something I think a little bit more along the lines of what I've been saying. He's a good character. Misunderstandings can make you blind, and that's what happened throughout the series. I don't see that as a reason to hate him, though. I think that's a valid. That's what I've been saying.
That's valid.
And again, we've been trying to approach this like we don't already know what's going to happen. I already know what's going to happen, and so do you. So there are times where I think a little bit of my future knowledge kind of seeps in, because I know what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
But even if I hadn't, I remember reading Shadow and Bone thinking, wow, I really hope that Mal gets visited by the three ghosts of Christmas while he's sleeping one night, and then he wakes up and he just decides to stop being a jerk.
You know, hot takes with Juliana right now, Jeff. I was kind of hoping that the Darkling would have a little bit of change of character, and that the Darkling would end up with Alina, or she would end up with someone else who we are going to meet later.
Well,
not yet, but later.
We've only gotten through one book so far, so.
But right now, I would hope the Darkling would have a change of heart and they would get together. But he is not a nice person in any form of the word. So yeah, good thing that they're not together.
Grishaverse fans just kept it simple. That I think they were appealing a little bit to your nurturing side. They said, yes, but I love him, with sad emojis.
Yes, and that's valid. We can all like and dislike who we like. So if you like him, you can take him. I don't want him. You can take him.
They don't like him. They love him.
Well, you can definitely take him then. Go for it.
Their love is real, Juliana.
That's good. I don't know if Mal is polyamorous or not. So the fact that I don't really want him, but Grishaverse fans does, I think is good, because we have to ask his consent to put him in a polyamorous relationship first. And the fact that right now she can have him for herself, I think that's good.
Fine. You can go hang out with the Darkling wives, because the Darkling wives just gave you a bunch of laughing and clapping emojis. So I get the feeling that they're in the same camp as you.
Yes. And I love that. That's a great username. Very fabulous. So going off of that, Jeff, we just talked about Mal. who clearly is Juliana's least favorite character in this book, probably besides the apparat. But we should probably talk about our MVP characters for this book. And Jeff, would you like to let me know who your MVP for Shadow and Bone was?
I give it to Botkin.
I kind of guessed that.
I do give it to Botkin because everybody has some kind of motivation for what they think the greater good is here. And everybody, with Alina kind of at the center, being pushed and pulled in this direction and that direction, and everybody's trying to make her see their point of view and be part of their plan. But Botkin, he doesn't do that to anybody. He shows up, he does the job. He's a hired mercenary, but you can tell that even though he's only doing this because he's being paid to do it, that he cares about whether or not it gets done right. And that underneath that hard exterior, that Botkin is a teacher who genuinely cares about his students.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think Botkin definitely genuinely cares about the progress and the well-being of his students. And like I said, I would have definitely guessed that he was your MVP, Jeff.
What about you?
I think I'm gonna give it to the Darkling, honestly, because I like all of the scenes that he's in. I think he's a very well-written character. I think that he's very manipulative, and I love the way that Leigh has written him. I think that he's obviously a terrible person, and he just is so just like an actor. He is my favorite, besides Bag of Chips, drag queen out there.
Bag of Chips is difficult to compete with.
Much better.
To go to the poorly equipped acting school. No, I'd rather go to the Bag of Chips one. Thank you.
I love Bag of Chips so much. But the Darkling is definitely one of my favorite drag queens of all time. He has style, he has flair, he has sass, he has attitude. He is here to win, honey. And I love him. So that's
Queen.
Yes, Queen Darkling.
You know what I find interesting? I pick Botkin, you pick the Darkling, and the responses that we got are all different. So we got 5 different MVPs altogether because Frumpy But Super Smart says their MVP is Baghra. It could be argued that she cares about Alina the most of all the people in the Little Palace, and she's this great combo of hard ass and carer.
Yes, they also said that for the TV show, obviously Milo was their favorite character. And to that, I say ditto. Milo is the star of the TV show. Everyone knows that.
Milo is the baby Yoda of Shadow and Bone.
Essentially, yes. And I definitely think Baghra is up there for me personally, too, as one of my MVPs. I was actually thinking as we were going through the favorite scenes, Jeff, one of the other scenes that popped into my head was when Alina finally is able to access her powers because she's gotten over Mal, kind of, let go of him, kind of. And she is able to access the powers. And then Baghra is like, okay, that wasn't good enough. And then and now we start the real training. And I just love her response to Alina being like, look at me, I did it, I'm fabulous. And she's like, great, that sucked. And that's like literally, I love her.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And then we have another favorite character from April May 2200. And they said, Jenya, as a person, she was put into a really hard spot and truly tried to help Alina. Also, she is a snarky badass. I will say, there seems to be a trend of snarky badasses in this book. And it seems on trend because you and I, Jeff, know a little bit about Leigh. And I would say that Leigh herself probably falls into the snarky badass category. And we are here for it. It's fabulous.
Very true. I mean, it's so in the beginning, it's fun because Jenya is a character that you take a journey with, because when she first walks in, I mentioned in the episode where we discussed the chapters where we meet Jenya that she comes in sounding like an obnoxious and for a little while she kind of stays that way, but then as she starts to let her guard down and she and Alina start to get to know each other and they become besties, and especially when you learn the truth about what the Darkling has forced her into. Oh my gosh.
It's terrible.
No, I mean, suddenly everything about her is put in perspective, and you're like, oh, okay. And you feel like you rush to judgment when you first
Mm-hmm.
meet Jenya, but by the end of the book, if you didn't care about her from the beginning, you certainly do
Mm-hmm.
by the time the book is over.
Yeah, even within this just first book, she has a pretty significant character arc, and it definitely puts her in a different light from the very first time that we meet her until we leave her in the end of this book. And I love her character arc in this book specifically, and I'm excited to see where her character goes from here, Jeff, because I feel like she's very interesting, and I'm interested to follow her.
Me too. My final thought with Jenya when we reached the end of Shadow and Bone was, oh man, I really hope that she and David finally work their stuff out
Yeah, I hope so
because
too.
they obviously love each other, and David is obviously not going to be able to just walk up to her and say, "Hey, I like you."
Yeah, not really in his wheelhouse of skills.
No, but it's okay. I have faith that that will come together.
Yeah, that's okay. So we had one more character, and this person is one of our top contributors, and it came from Bookworm Alley 93. And they said Alina, because even if she's often annoying, mostly while pining over Mal, agreed. She's a badass. She falls for the bad guy, but still makes the right choices, saving people and fighting against being used. I really like seeing her grow and learn how to use her powers. Yeah, I would say that this kind of falls on the trend that we've established, Jeff, of strong women being some of the top characters in this book, and it's great.
Yeah, it's a perfect summary of who Alina is.
Yeah.
There are some times where you get a little frustrated with her, and if you're not a Mal Alina shipper, then you're definitely going to get frustrated when she's pining over Mal. She tries to make the right choices. She falls for the bad guy, but who can blame her? If I were in her position, I would have fallen for the Darkling too. It
Oh,
totally
yeah.
would have worked because it's easy for somebody outside looking in to say, "Oh, there's no way they would have been able to trick me." But he's a cult leader. It's what cult leaders do. They read the room, they figure out how to connect with you, and then they draw you in. And you never think it's going to happen to you until it does.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like me and the Darkling, if the Darkling did the same thing to me that he did to Alina, I would be 125% in all the way, no questions asked. So I fully agree, can identify with that, making like small mistakes as she goes along, but she's a person and she's learning and she's living her life. And that's what people do. That's what you and I do, Jeff. We're not perfect. We make mistakes as we go along, and you
We're
just have
not,
to, I hate to break it to you, but
but
unfortunately,
but we're in two people's top 5 lists. Is that not perfection?
Jeff, sometimes you have to have hard conversations with your friends.
Oh
And
no.
I'm really sorry,
I
but
don't like where this is going.
you're not perfect.
I'm not.
No.
Oh.
I listeners, I think this podcast is just gonna be me the rest of the time. Jeff needs to go and cry in a corner for the rest of this podcast. Poor Jeffrey.
Am I
Jeffrey.
still cool?
Yeah, you're still cool.
Oh, well, then I'm fine.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. He's back. Quick bounce back, quick recovery, just living in the moment, just taking it as it comes.
My self-esteem is like a Fabergé egg balanced on a pixie stick.
Did you just make that up?
I don't know.
I love it anyway.
I got it. I may have gotten it from somewhere, but I can't immediately think of where.
I really hope you just made that up and it's not actually from some weird thing that you watched forever ago and was just in the weird vault in your mind.
I don't know.
A Fabergé egg balanced on a pixie stick. I mean, I can't identify with that any more than anything I've ever identified with in my life. So,
you know what I want to talk about?
What, Jeff?
I want to talk about our favorite quotes.
Yes, our favorite
quotes. This is a book. Books are full of words, and sometimes the right combination of words can just make you feel like chef's kiss.
Yes. Jeff, did you have any favorite quotes from this book?
Yes, I do. One of my favorite quotes, just one that I've pulled out of many quotable moments from the book, is, why can a Grisha possess but one amplifier? I will answer this question instead. What is infinite? The universe and the greed of men. That last part I have used so many times. There are two things that are infinite, the universe and the greed of men. If I had to give an edge to one over the other, I would say that the greed of men is far more expansive than the universe. Men are greedy.
Men are very greedy. We've learned that over and over and over again.
That's why nothing ever works in real life the way it works in theory.
Yeah, exactly. Because stupid white cis guys getting in the way. Hi.
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 Hi. I love that quote. I have a quote picked out, but I have another quote that's in my head that I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's the quote about faith that the apparat says, and he says something
about how it's strong enough to topple empires.
I think I
love that moment.
That's a good quote too. We hate the apparat, but he has some good quotable moments, I will say. I think that's very fun. Jeff, I'm sure you could guess what my favorite quote is.
Yeah, but I want to hear it from you.
Listeners, if you are a listener to this podcast for more than one episode, I think you know where I'm going with this. But my favorite quote is, if we start running tallies on stupid, we both know who is going to come out ahead. Mal said that. Yes, that is Julieta's favorite quote. It goes to prove that I have been right this entire time. Mal comes straight out the gate and says it, and I would like to take my trophy. Thank you very much. I will leave now, and thank you. It's been lovely, listeners. You enjoy. Have fun with Jeff. Goodbye.
How come you always get to decide when stuff is over?
I don't know. I do things. And then I check in back with you, Jeff, and make sure it's okay.
No, we have more favorite quotes to go over. We can't stop yet.
Fine. I'll come back. So we do have a few more quotes from our listeners that they picked out. And our first one is from Bookworm Alley 93. And they said their favorite quote was, "The problem with wanting is that it makes us weak." And they said, I think that this really reflects why the Darkling can't love Alina without wanting to control her, because he's so blinded by power. He knows that feelings are always going to get in the way if you want to rule the world. True.
That's absolutely true. And all the more reason for perfectly reasonable, non-evil people like you and me to say, who wants to rule the world?
That's so much work.
Too much responsibility. Ugh. You're always at war. You have to crush your enemies all the time, which leaves you no room for sleep. And does anybody ever say thank you for conquering that country over there? No.
When am I ever going to get my facials done if I have to worry about conquering countries? I mean, come on. I have priorities.
Like, people keep marching on your borders while you just want to get your facial done because you have a makeup tutorial to film because you're the Darkling drag queen and you do makeup tutorials.
You also do YouTube videos where you show how you decorate your space. I'm sure he does a lot of DIYs. He's an avid person, an avid visitor to the Salvation Army or thrift shops, and he upcycles things. Check out his channel, The Darkling Upcycles Everything, on YouTube.
Like that one scene in Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, where they're decorating their room in the house to the Wonder Woman song, and they're just like throwing spangly, sparkly sheets all over the place, and they're falling perfectly into place.
I've never seen that, Jeff, but it sounds exactly correct.
I'm going to send you a YouTube video after we're done here so that you can see exactly what I mean.
Okay. From what you've described, it sounds exactly like what I would have in my head anyway. So I'm excited to watch it later.
April May 2200 said their favorite quote was, "Fine, make me your villain," from the Darkling.
This is probably the most quotable moment from the entire book. It is the thing that you see on every single piece of Shadow and Bone merchandise on Etsy. It is the thing that people have tattooed on their bodies from this book series specifically. And it's kind of one of the things that really has gripped the fandom and hit home in the merchandising section, I would say, of the Shadow. Yeah. I
If
would
you
put,
check on Etsy, then definitely for sure.
yeah, this and No Mourners, No Funerals are probably the top two.
We aren't at No Mourners, No Funerals yet.
But if you go on Etsy and you put Shadow and Bone merchandise, it usually comes up anyway.
Oh, that's from the show.
Well, yeah, we won't give any context for that, but those are probably the top two like little phrases that you can find on pieces of merchandise made by fans.
Well, this is why we're focusing on the books, because on the show Shadow and Bone, they start to bleed in a lot of the stuff from the Six of Crows
Yeah.
universe. And in terms of just reading the books, we're not there yet. So
No, we're
there's a
not.
lot of context for stuff in the Netflix show Shadow and Bone that we don't have context for in the books because we're not there.
Yeah, I would like to know exactly why this quote is such a big hit with the fandom because it is a really good quote. I do agree.
Which one? Make me your villain?
Yeah.
I think I'll tell you exactly why. It's to
Oh,
me,
okay.
this is what I call the Darkling Scarface moment, because when Scarface has one of his big speeches in the film, it's essentially him saying, you know what, fine, go ahead, call me the bad guy, but you know what, you need people like me to be the bad guy. Say goodnight to the bad guy. I think it's when he's having his say hello to my little friend moment where he's shooting the gun, But what
Mm-hmm.
he's essentially saying is, you know what? You want to go after people like me and you want to call me a bad guy and tell me that I'm a terrible person. But if you didn't have people like me, then people like you would have nothing to live for because you'd have no purpose.
That's exactly what the Darkling is saying here. Fine, make me your villain. In your eyes, I am the villain, and I will just accept that because that's the way that society is going to view me, no matter what I do. And I feel like, yeah, you're probably right, Jeff. That's why it hits home.
Violet Pod just said, you can never have too much champagne.
Yeah.
Disagree, but I like the spirit of that quote. I like
The
the
energy.
I like the energy. Yeah, it's good. But
Yeah,
from a
good vibes.
practical, like personal experience point, I strongly disagree. You can absolutely have too much champagne.
Yes. Well, like we said, I like the energy of this quote, and I feel like it's a good quote to end our favorite quotes on.
So you wanted to know, are people Team Darkling, Team Mal, or Team someone else?
Yes.
You want to know what I think?
Yes, Jeff. I would love to know what you think.
Why do we have to be Team anything here?
I mean,
Why do we need to be?
we don't have to, but I think it was a fun question to ask. And we actually got a lot of nice responses from people. So I think it was just me trying to be a little bit controversial in the questions that I was asking to our listeners.
Well, you mentioned Twilight before, one of the biggest things to come out
Oh
of
my
that. And
God.
there were
Yeah.
t-shirts, there were fan pages, there were debates about whether you
Mm-hmm.
were Team Edward or
Or
Team
Team
Jacob.
Jacob.
And I was probably the target demographic for that because I was about 18 years old when the first Twilight came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading these and I'm seeing all these t-shirts and all these people taking sides, and I'm thinking, are you guys serious? Like, do you really think that there is any chance that she's not going to end up with Edward? Because if she's not, then what was all this for?
That was part of the reason that I was Team Edward because I was thinking, like, why has this whole storyline led to this point if she's not going to be with him? Because it makes no sense.
I can see it from a shipping point of view because if you write an AU fan fiction where the Darkling, like his heart grows 3 sizes one day and suddenly
Uh-huh.
he realizes that all the things he's been doing are terrible and he has to start changing who he is as a person, then yeah, I could see Mal and Mal and Dark. Gosh, I could see Alina and the Darkling being a thing. But I mean, the author herself says about the Darkling, she's said it many times before. She never really intended for anybody to fall in love with the Darkling and to be shipping the Darkling and Alina together. I mean, if they
Yeah.
do, then that's okay. But it wasn't like something she was trying to start.
Yeah. Well, here we are, Jeff, asking for controversial opinions anyway, even if Leigh Bardugo did not intend on it. And So did you have an answer that you would like to share as part of this controversial question?
Have you not been listening, dude? I just gave you my answer.
You said Team Mal.
No. I said, why do we have to be team anything? That was like my topic sentence, dude.
No, but I wanted to know if you had to pick one, which one would you do? Which one would you pick?
I'm not going to pick between these two. That's the same thing as me saying that this female character who is a strong, independent person has to choose something based on what I say.
Well,
I'm not doing that.
okay. Well, you could pick someone else. So my answer was Fenyor.
I picked team. You know what? I pick team Alina. It's her business. It's her life.
True.
And just let her decide what her heart says, because I'm not going to put her with anybody she shouldn't be with.
Okay. Well, let's see what the listeners said, Jeff.
Wait, what about your answer?
I said I was Team Fenyor. I already said that.
It's Fedyor.
Oh, oops.
Fed. I mean, if you want to pronounce it weird, fine. It's Fedyor. He's a lovely character, cute as a button, and we're gonna spell his name right.
Nah, that's too much work. Nah.
Okay, fine. Let's get to some of the other answers.
Yeah. So we had some answers from you lovely listeners. We had our first answer from Grishaverse fans, and they said, I am both. So this person puts Alina in a polyamorous relationship with the Darkling and Mal. So she does not have to choose, and she is the one running. This is kind of brother wives situation right here.
Maybe they just want Mal and the Darkling to kiss.
I mean, this could be a pretty solid threesome.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I feel like the sexual tension could be very real between the three of them. And oh boy, someone go check Pornhub.com, because this might be a video that someone has already made.
Maybe we don't encourage our listeners to check Pornhub.com. That'll be a fun conversation between our dear friend Kendra Dantes and her mom. Listen to the show together, and then next thing you know, the hosts are saying, hey, check out Pornhub.com, and they're like, well, this was fun.
Oh. Hey, I don't know the dynamics of people's relationship with other people that they are in, like, friends with or family members with. So, if that's your thing, go for it. If not, we have some other answers from our other listeners. And we had Bookworm Alley, who said, Team Darkling all the way. Alina and the Darkling are end game for me. It's the light and the darkness.
Interesting. So then I have to wonder, and I'm sure Allie will find a way to let us know, does that mean Allie thinks that the Darkling will end up redeeming themselves as a character? Because they're pretty far from it at the end of Shadow and Bone. Yeah. They did say the Darkling and Alina are end game for them. So maybe that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, and we do have at least 2 more books where we're going to get some kind of interaction between the two of them, because they're both still alive at the end of this book, and the Darkling is actively going after Alina. So we know that they're going to interact in some capacity going forward, and maybe the Darkling will have a change of heart, Jeff. You never know.
Maybe.
We also got an answer from Grisha Nerd Art, and they said, originally I just read the first book and it took me a while to get to the second, meaning that I reread the first book before I got to read the second. And truth be told, I really do not like Mal. So the Darkling is the one I would team up with. When I finally got to the second book, I realized that there was someone else I was willing to get on board with. And to that I say, stay tuned, listeners, because me and Grisha we're on the same page.
Yeah, there's a couple of winking side-eye emojis there.
Yeah. So stay tuned. We all know that Juliana's favorite character is coming up in the next book. We haven't met them yet. So stay tuned for that, for sure.
Now, Yael, again, I hope I say this right. Yael _107030 gave a fun answer too. They said, I'm Team Jenya.
Yeah, I can stand behind that. I mean, I think that they have the startings of a good relationship together.
See, it's kind of that whole, it's kind of a Wolf Star thing for me, where in Harry Potter, a lot of people ship Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, and then people are like, well, what about Nymphadora Tonks? It'd be kind of that thing with this. It's like, I could see Jenya and Alina having a very deep connection that way, especially after everything that they've both been through with the men in their lives. But then you have to ask yourself, what about David? What about him? Because you could do that a lot of ways. You could do it where like one of them is poly and one of them isn't. So they have an arrangement. You could do it where they're a throuple and the three of them are together, which I really don't see David going for because David has enough trouble communicating his true feelings to Jenya.
Yeah, I would say that David is probably like an aromantic, asexual person on the whole.
Like they're married because they love each other, but he knows she has needs and that those are needs that maybe he won't be able to fulfill. So I can see that. I mean, people do that. It's not, what works in my marriage. It's not what's common, but people do it.
I could definitely see David being okay with Alina and Genya having a more sexual relationship. And then them being a throuple together. I feel like the energy would actually work out okay in the long run.
Now, this response I got, because we don't get a ton of traffic on our Twitter, but when we do, it always makes me smile. And this one in particular, I enjoyed because I look forward to the moment when I screenshot this and send it to you. And I just waited for your reaction because Miss_McAvoy on Twitter just sent us a GIF of Alina and Mal from the Netflix show, and they're smiling and their arms are around each other and they're happy. And I just sent this to Juliana and I just said, I am waiting to hear how your stomach is just so upset looking at this image. The face that you are making right now matches that. That's the face that I pictured.
See, I'm much more okay with show Mal and show Alina being together. I think that relationship is a lot better. It's book Mal that I have the hatred for per se. So the picture of show Mal and show Alina, yes, because of the context of it and how we're talking about it is very deeply upsetting. But the show itself, I actually don't mind show Mal. But again, like we've mentioned multiple times, they're kind of different people in a way. But we will get to more of that when we review the show on the whole. So stay tuned for that, listeners. But our last thing that we'd like to talk about is our reaction to reading the end of the book. So Jeff, how did you feel when you read the end of this book?
I felt like I needed to immediately jump into the next book, which is exactly what I did. I have this thing where if I have just finished an installment in a series, I immediately need to at least jump into the first couple of minutes of what comes next. Like I can't just read a book, it's done, I set it aside, I go do something else, and then I come back to the next book. Like if I have just finished a book that I know is in a series, then I immediately have to go into at least the first couple of pages of the next one. It's the same with TV shows. If I just watched a season finale of one of the shows that I watch, then I have to at least watch the first couple minutes of the next season's premiere.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I'm definitely not like that. If I'm going to start the next thing, like I want to have time to consume as much of it as possible. So I would rather wait till when I have time to read it. Do I want to have the next item immediately? Yes. Did I go and buy all the books before I finished reading this book? Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I had the whole stack on my desk, and now the stack is on my bookshelf looking very pretty because those books are pretty. But I think for me personally, and we talked about this before, I decided that I really liked this book series and that I was in, and that's kind of where this podcast came from, was me finishing up this book and being like, Jeffrey, it's podcasting time. Come join my podcast with me. You and me, we podcast together.
But
and him being like, what?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because we met and then it became pretty clear shortly after the beginning of our friendship that one day we would have a podcast together.
Yeah.
About something.
Yeah.
And then when I introduced you to this book series, that became the thing.
Yeah. I claimed you as my podcasting buddy. The first time I heard you podcast, and we were already friends at that point. And I told you that there was no way that you were going to not do a podcast with me. It was not going to happen. We were doing a podcast together, and that was that. We just had to come up with what it was. And so here we are. And listeners, I hope that you're thankful for that. I hope that my drive to not leave Jeff alone and make this podcast happen has brought you some format of joy in
Be
your
honest,
life.
you just brought me on here so that you could constantly rake Mal over the coals and have somebody here to react to it.
Going into this book series, I didn't really think I was going to hate Mal as much as I did before we started this podcast. But each chapter we read, I just hate him a little bit more. And by the time we get to the end of this book series, oh, baby, is Juliana going to have it out for Mal? But, listeners, stay tuned for that.
The Grisha Nerd Art's reaction, I don't know how to pronounce this because I don't know if this is a word. Their reaction to the end of the book was I need the next book. In case anybody's wondering, all those N's and K's and H's, those were really in there.
Yeah.
Look it up on our Instagram. Those consonants are right up next to each other.
Oh, yeah.
That's how you really know that your reaction to a book is nice and strong. When your reaction, if you were to transcribe it, is so powerful that you can't even distinguish vowel sounds. The consonants are just pushing right up against each other, not even allowing the vowels any room. Just
yeah. I react to things like that a lot. So Grisha Nerd Art, you're not alone.
That's relatable.
I feel like every time Grisha Nerd Art has had a comment throughout this episode, we're kind of been on the same page. So shout out to them. Love you. Sending you hugs. My fellow Mal hater. And
oh boy. What did Allie have to say?
Yeah, so we had one last comment from Allie, and they said, I was a bit choked, but in a good way. I didn't think at first that she would find the strength to fight off and get free of the Darkling, and I had so many questions. I immediately started Siege and Storm. I'm really excited to reread it with you for the next season of this podcast. So we're excited to read it with you too, Allie. So thank you so much for reading it so far with us, and definitely we are excited to start the next book for sure.
Definitely, for sure.
Yes. So Jeff, I didn't know if you wanted to or not. I actually didn't reread it before we got here. Do you want to talk about the letter from Mal at the end of the book?
We can talk about it briefly.
Okay. So the last thing that we'd like to talk about, listeners, before we head off into the abyss and start our winter fate in the next episode, is if you have the American edition of Shadow and Bone, you will get this lovely letter in the back of the book. And it is a letter that goes from Mal to Alina. And it kind of assumes that he is waiting to hear from her. It happens before they've met up and had their little fight and are on the run. But it is assuming essentially that he hasn't heard from her because the Darkling is keeping all the letters that she sent to him. And he's like, what the heck is going on? Why has she not written to me? What's going on? And this letter, I think, was found somewhere in the icy Fjorden forest or something like that. It was
found near the Rovkin border.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Yeah, it was a letter that was meant to go out to Alina, and that Mal wrote to Alina, pretty much being like, I miss you. What's going on? Why have you not written to me? And it gets lost and never gets to Alina. So we find it along the Rovkin border, and lucky us, we get to read it. What a treat.
Here's what stands out to me about this letter that they found. If we had had context for this letter in the middle of the story, then I feel like we would have seen a little bit more of that side of Mal that I think I was trying to sort of defend every time he came up when he was being a jerk, especially after their reunion, or like during all those moments where it seemed like every chapter for a while was ending with Alina not able to sleep because Mal wasn't there. Because that's one of the things in the letter that stands out. He mentions several times in this letter, which it feels to me like I think it's a letter that he wrote in like one setting, And yet there are moments where it feels like he started writing it and then he walked away from it and he came back and he started writing it, almost like it's separate journal entries smashed into one document. But
Yeah.
what you see from his perspective that matches Alina's perspective is that neither of them can sleep. Like he
Yeah.
mentioned several times in this letter, I need to sleep. I have a job to do. I really wish I could sleep, but I can't because I can't stop thinking about what's going on with you. Even if you've gotten over me, I don't care. I just need to see you so that I know that you're okay.
Yeah. It kind of shows us that he, without knowing it, is on the same exact page as Alina with what they kind of are thinking and want from each other, and they both miss each other a lot. And you're right, we didn't have this context in the main portion of the book, and it definitely would have shown a different light on Mal if we had been able to get this more sensitive, thoughtful side of him, as opposed to the side that we see when he barges into the little palace and has a screaming fight with Alina.
When he has that screaming fight with Alina, there's this very don't you realize what I've been through? Don't you realize what I did to get back to you moment?
Mm-hmm.
And that he describes some of those things in the letter. He describes there are people who are getting killed right in front of him. There are people who he thinks he's going to see the next day, and then he finds their bodies just outside the tent. They're freezing to death out there.
Yeah.
They're at war. Like
Mm-hmm.
he wonders every day if he's going to live long enough to get confirmation about what's going on with her. He's asking about her with other Grisha and people that he probably shouldn't be asking questions of because it's going to lead to trouble, but he doesn't care.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting to think, Jeff, what if Alina had actually gotten this letter? Because we see that her realizing that she is kind of dependent on Mal is hindering her power, and that's kind of what suppressed it. But if she had received this letter, I feel like she would have kept just thinking about Mal and kind of holding out for him, and probably wouldn't have been able to access her power in the way that she does in the book if she had been able to actually get this letter before that happened. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it would have what we said it would have painted him in a slightly better light, and it might have saved them some arguing, but it would have also made a lot more conflict for Alina
Mm-hmm.
because she was just destined to be conflicted in this situation no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has this history with Mal, and then she's taken away from him. She doesn't know where he is. She doesn't know if she's ever going to see him again or not. She knows how it feels from her perspective, not from his. And then he shows up and they have this big fight.
Yeah.
And they have the same perspective just from different sides. You don't realize what I've been through. You don't realize what I've done. You don't realize how much I've missed you. And if they could just kind of step back and actually listen to each other, then they would realize they were saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Yeah.
she'd had this letter, then it would have actually made her a lot, depending on exactly at what point she got it, it would have
Yeah.
prevented her from, it may have even prevented her from being able to unlock her power when she did. Because remember that moment when she's
Mm-hmm.
in that lesson with Bagra where she's finally able to unleash her power voluntarily, it's because she realizes the thing that's holding her back is
Is Mal.
not wanting to lose Mal. So once she starts to accept that she may have already lost him, then there goes her power. But what
Mm-hmm.
if she'd gotten the letter before that?
Yeah, that's what I was saying too, that I don't think she would have been able to access her power if she had read that letter beforehand, or it would have, the process would have been drawn out even more and more and more. So definitely a different storyline for sure if she had received that letter. And I think that that would have made a pretty significant difference in the storyline, honestly. So, but I'm kind of glad that she didn't get that letter, because then she was able to access her powers and become a little bit more independent, which I appreciate. But I think that's it, Jeff. We are
That's
officially
literally the entire
is.
book. We have
We
now
are
wrapped it up.
done. Congratulations, listeners. Congratulations to us. We have finished our very first book. You get a kind smile, a wink, and a pat on the back. You have to pat yourself on the back, though, because I'm not in your house and I can't come pat you on the back. Sorry.
True.
That would be creepy.
We have no fun segment for this week, but Fear not, because just like this episode was basically one long voice of the people segment, this next episode is going to essentially be one long fun segment because we are throwing our very own Winter Fate. We are going to have games
and fun.
And we are going to probably be dressed up. Are we going to dress up for this?
We can. I never got to wear my cosplay of Mal, so I think that this is the prime opportunity for me to do so because I love a strong eyebrow.
Okay.
And I know what I'm going for.
I'm going to dress up in something. I don't know what, but I'm going to dress up in something.
I think I might end up being Mal. We'll have to see. Just remind me that morning, Jeff, that I'm supposed to dress up because I have my hat and everything ready. I just need to, I just need a nice dark pencil and then I think I'll be good. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yes. So, but listeners, again, because this was a unique episode and next episode is a unique episode, we didn't have a real question that was the question of the episode because you guys already answered them all in the actual main discussion. And next week, we don't really have a question either, but I have a request for you. If you have a game that you'd like us to play, or if you have any suggestions for segments within some of the games that we've already played, like Kiss, Marry, Kill, or you have a segment that you would like us to take on, or a Mad Libs that you've written, or if you've written a kind of funny fan fiction that you'd like us to read, a short funny fan fiction, we would love that as well too.
Doesn't have to be holiday themed, but if it happened to be holiday themed, that would be fun.
Yeah, probably keep it closer to around like 200 words, just so we can keep the show moving.
200 words isn't a fan fiction, that's a summary.
Yeah, but we're going to be doing a lot of stuff, Jeff.
Well, yeah, but still, you can't tell people to write fan fiction.
500 words.
500 words, yeah, fine.
500. If it takes us more than like 10 minutes to read through, or like 5 or 10 minutes to read through, we're going to have to either shorten it or not read it. But if you would like to get in contact with us, you can listen to us anywhere pods are cast, and you can also find us on YouTube at Into the Fold Podcast.
And if you want to be like any of the listeners who got in on our conversation today and gave us plenty to talk about, you can also join us on our social medias. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Into the Fold Pod.
And you can also send us an email at intothefoldpod@gmail.com. So send us any feedback, comments, questions, concerns, and segments for the Winter Fate right to that email, please and thank you.
And if you want to do something nice for us, like our dear friend Eleanor with 3 O's, you can leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and we can read it on the show.
Yes. And I would also like to say, if you have written a review for us already and you would like a sticker, please just reach out to me on our Instagram or our email, and I will send you a Into the Fold sticker. So Eleanor, send us your mailing information and I will send you out a pod sticker, please and thank you.
She
and
really will.
I probably with multiple other random things that are sitting around my apartment. That's just kind of the trend that happens. I don't have as many Shadow and Bone knickknacks as I do Harry Potter knickknacks. So, might be a little bit more limited. You might get a seashell or something because I live on Cape Cod, but who knows? I can't just send a sticker. It's not within my realm of possibilities. But other than that, if you would like to help us a lot, one of the best ways that this show can grow its audience is by you listeners sharing it with people you know and love and telling them in person, because that's the best way that podcasts are spread, is by word of mouth. So if you do that for us, we highly appreciate it. And just let us know if you had any fun stories, interactions, something funny happened if you do so. But until next time,
we will see you at the Winter Fate.
Ooh, boy, I'm waiting for my invitation. Boy. Smappa. That's like the word. This is like me doing a Midwestern accent mixed with a Boston accent, because a real Boston accent be like a smart park. You smart park the car in the Harvard yard and that is more like a Boston accent. The other accent I was doing was definitely way more of like a Midwestern accent.
So I shouldn't do that accent when we come visit. Like, am I gonna get punched?
You should not do that version of it because you probably won't get punched, but people will definitely know that you're not from Boston. I
Time to
am
do
ready.
the show now?
Yeah.
All right, let's do the show.
Bring up my notes.
Oh my God, you don't have your notes up?
No, I have them right here. I have a note.
Ready.
I'm looking at them right now.
But then why did you say that?
Because I was minimizing the Zoom.
See, now I can tell you have your notes up. I can see your name bouncing around the Google Doc.
Ooh, look,
now I know you have
I'm
your notes up.
everywhere. Wee! That's not what I wanted.
Oh, sorry. Need coffee.
Yeah, take a sip. Get yourself centered.
2 sips.
Okay.
Pretty sure that's Lamaze.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never done Lamaze.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but it's fine. It's breathing, and that's a good thing. We should all be breathing. That's what I think. Hot takes with Juliana.
Okay.
Aw, that's so nice.
Oh, I can feel my self-esteem going up.
My self-esteem.
Oh, my self-esteem.
Jeff cuts that in. And he cuts out all the things that Juliana just said.
Yeah, he's gonna have to.
Yeah, sorry. That wasn't my bad, Jeff.
April, May 2200. How do I want to? April, May 2200. No, 2200. Okay. Yeah. This material's copywritten.
Yeah.
Cease and desist.
Yes.
We're going to get flagged for this.
Nah, I don't think so.
If you want to keep up with us on social... Oh my gosh. I can't.
What? Hello?
I have to do that again. I need a minute.
Jeffrey is losing it. He is here. Hello, I'm the curator of Into the Field. I'm here today to tell you how to contact this lovely podcast. Yes, I am wearing a monocle. Imagine me wearing a monocle.
Could we take it again from the telling people they can listen to us every... Could we take it from that whole thing again?
Are they fancy invitations, Jeff?
Of course they're fancy. It's the winter fair.